Hello, Obooters from around the world. My name is Kais, and I am 13 years old, and I live in Boston, Massachusetts. Welcome to our Oboot Zoom session where me and my co-host Arihaan, who is 11 years old and lives in India, will be interviewing our guest changemaker, Antonio Salgado Delgado, who is from Mexico. Antonio is an experienced program and project management professional who helps vulnerable people overcome the challenges that they may face. These include missing persons and their families, migrants, and more. He worked for several international organizations, including the Interpol, the International Commission on Missing Persons, and the International Rescue Committee. Antonio's work links to several sustainable development goals, especially to goal number 10, reduced inequalities. Arihaan and I will ask questions to Antonio about his background, his journey, his work, his skills, and his impact. We hope that you enjoy this session, and I will now start with our first question to our guest. Can you please tell us a little bit about you and what you do for work?
Well, it's an honor for me to be here with you today, and I'm really happy to have been invited to this interview. So my name is Antonio Salgado, as you said. I am from Mexico. I am 40 years old, and I've been working for the last 15 years on issues related to criminal justice, rule of law, and most recently working with refugees and asylum seekers. I just graduated last year from Harvard Kennedy School, where I studied a mid-career master's in public administration. And now I'm back to Mexico trying to, work a little bit and to do some of the things that are needed here in my country to help some of the people that need it most.
Okay. So my first question to you is, so Anthony, I'm very excited to speak to you, especially because my mom also works in human trafficking. So can you please tell me what inspired you for the work that you do?
Well, many of these people that are, nobody leaves their home just because they want to. So nobody one day says, leaves their loved one and their lives of being, and it's like, okay, I'm going to live all of these just because like that. There might be some people that choose to do that, but other people that just have to do it because of the circumstances that they're living. Maybe there is war in their countries, or maybe they don't make enough money, or maybe they're being discriminated because of a certain reason. So I think that, as probably if you've learned from your mom, from the work that she does, is that it's good that there is someone, or there is people that can help these people that are in very vulnerable positions to try to find a better life no matter where they are. So for me, it's really, really important, or this is something that moves me quite a little bit, because I want to help these people. I want to help these people that sometimes, for example, the government might not be able to provide them the help that they need, or the government might not even know how to do it, or they don't even have the resources, or even the law or legislation. So that's why for me it's very important to work in this work, and it really motivates me to do things for the people that are in vulnerable situations like that.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Are there any studies that you had to do for your work?
Quite a little bit, actually, because I think that for the work that I do, or for the work that probably your mom does as well, you need sometimes maybe some skills to know a little bit of the law. You don't need to be a lawyer, but you need to know of what are some of the laws that apply. I needed to learn a little bit of project management, because in the international work, a lot of the work that it's done is done through donors, governments that give money to solve a certain issue. And you need to learn how to manage it, and you need to learn how to work with teams that might be experts or not. You also need to learn, it's good to have communication skills. And this is a skill that if you're building, continue to build, because it's very, very important. You need to be able to communicate the activities that you are doing, so that you can show the impact of the work that you do. And the thing is, sometimes you don't see the impact of the work if you don't show it to people, or if you don't have a way of demonstrating it in a certain way. I also had to learn a little bit of how to write, both for a newspaper, but also technical reports that will be read, where we say our activities, how they were. So that was a little bit of the skills that I needed to learn. And even last year when I went to HKS, those were some of the skills that I had to learn to make them happen.
Okay. So my next question to you is, what is the most difficult or like strange case that you have helped solve?
So I think that one of the most difficult things that happened to me was I was once invited to a country, and I apologize that I cannot tell you the name of the country because I need to I need to keep that to myself. But I was once in a country where I had been invited to help deliver training, and at the same time I was working with a couple of professional experts who are forensic pathologists and forensic anthropologists. Do you know what a forensic pathologist and a forensic anthropologist does?
No.
No. Can you explain it?
So these are people that whenever someone dies, or whenever there has been a crime and many people die, they invite these people to try to learn and try to discover why the people were died. What was the cause of their death? So I was working with these people, and next to where I was, there was a room of women, of mothers, of many of them were mothers who had lost their sons. So for me, it was very, very difficult because I had to help and work with the scientists, but also work with the families and try to be hopeful and try to show them that, we never know if we were going to find their son or their daughter within those people, but we were there trying to help them. And sometimes that's a very, very difficult thing, because when you're with families or when you're with vulnerable people, I myself might not have all the tools to help them. I might be in an organization that might be able to solve some of their problems, but not all of their problems. So it's challenging to be sometimes in that situation. And I think for me, that was one of the hardest times where I had to working both with families and with the experts. But at the end, things ended up turning out well.
That must be very difficult indeed.
Okay, so you said that you worked in Interpol, right?
Yes.
What's the hardest thing about working in Interpol? Because it's around, it's worldwide, right?
So the work at Interpol, when I used to work at Interpol, it was very good, because I got to meet people from all over the world. In my office, for example, when I was sitting, we had something like 30 nationalities. Can you imagine that? I mean, well, maybe now you can imagine it because of HKS, but imagine 30 people from 30 nationalities. And I had friends that were from Ecuador, or friends that were from France, and people working from Greece, or people working from Canada, Argentina, from all over the world, Slovakia. But I think that one of the most challenging things is that precisely because you're with a lot of people from all over the world, also you're with a lot of people that have very different cultures and very different ways of communicating and very different ways of behaving. So sometimes you needed to be very careful and make sure that whatever you were working on would not offend them. You have to be careful of their cultural background. You have to be careful of how of something that you might do would not offend them. So it was it's interesting because when there are people dynamics like that, it's always you have different ways of greeting, different ways of behaving. So I think that's one of the challenging things. Another challenging thing is that so you probably heard that Interpol is this international police organization, but the challenge is that Interpol, or as an Interpol officer, I did not have any jurisdiction. That means if a crime happened in Tunisia or if a crime happened in Delhi, the police working for Interpol could not come and catch that criminal. They had to work with the local police. So sometimes it will require a coordination for an operation. It would require a coordination at an international level, and then at a local level. So I never went to Tunisia, but I went to Delhi and Hyderabad many times to try to do coordination with the police, but also not only coordination for operations, but coordination for training or coordination for making a project happen. So it was challenging. On one side, the culture of the people in the main office, but in the other, having to work together with different countries that also have different laws, rules, and legislations. I think that was one of the most challenging things. But if you ever in your careers can go to an organization like Interpol, I would highly recommend it because it was a professionally wonderful experience.
Okay, so my next question to you is, I love watching The Mentalist, and it's basically a crime show. So I wanted to ask you, what is your favorite crime show?
My favorite crime show? Oh, I like Criminal Minds. I like also CSI, but the original one, the Las Vegas. So those are my two favorite crime shows. I like it. I enjoy crime shows a lot. When they can use powers of deduction, but there is also some forensic investigation, and they might not be realistic, but it's also it's nice when it works like that.
Yeah. Guys, it's your question.
Yeah. Are these crime shows normally are they realistic? Are they like similar to what would happen in the real world?
Funny enough, no. Because the thing is, I don't know if you've seen when you see a crime show, it's funny because they get the phone, right? And all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm just going to plug it into a machine and unlock it. In reality, that doesn't work because, I mean, unless you are the FBI or the CIA, you won't have as normal police in Mexico or even police in the United States. They don't have all of them access to all of that technology. So it's sometimes not possible for them to make an analysis of the phone like that. Sometimes they need to invest in hundreds of thousands of dollars in the equipment or hardware that will help them crack that phone. So it's not doable. Not in the speed, at least, that what the show shows. Or sometimes they say like, oh, I found this fingerprint, and because of that I found the fingerprint, already the crime is solved. No, because in reality, to find the fingerprint, you have to find someone that gave the fingerprint. So can you imagine a country like India? Like you have like what is it, like over a billion people. It's impossible that you have the fingerprints of everyone. The same in Tunisia, or the same in Mexico. So some of the processes are right, some of the ways that they behave are right, but sometimes the speed of an investigation, what I've seen with the police, sometimes can take years. Whereas in these crime shows, they solve it in a couple of days, and 50 minutes at the show last. No, so it's sometimes a little bit harder than that. And one thing that the crime shows do not show is that once you gather the evidence, you still need to bring it to a court of law, that the court will be able to say, like, okay, this person is guilty or not guilty. And sometimes the court can look at the evidence and say, well, that's your interpretation of a case. It's not because they found forensic evidence that it's solid proof. Very smart lawyers or very smart people can come and say, oh, this is not real. But for the most part, the processes are right. It's just the time is not exactly the same time or as accurate as it should be.
Okay, so why do you think people commit crimes?
I this is a question that I think about a lot, because I used to think that maybe people were poor. In Mexico, for example, you think like, oh, maybe poor people are committing crimes, but then you see that rich people also commit crimes, and you see that people that have everything commit crimes. So I think that there is something very human, that a fault that humans have, that they always want to get what they can't have, or maybe they want more than they want. And some people come from good families, and some people are learning since they're like young kids, or young adults like you, learning how to, getting to meet other people and getting to expand your horizons a little bit more. But there are other people that can do that, and they are even when they don't need money, they maybe are trapped by their environment, and they are maybe put in difficult situations. In Mexico, for example, sometimes people commit crimes because if they don't commit crimes, the criminal organizations will get them and will do something to their families. So I don't know. I feel that there are people that there are some people that want to do good, but sometimes they are caught in a difficult situation. There are others that are they will never be happy and want to have other things. But there are also other people that they didn't have the opportunity of learning more and learning other ways of life the way that you are doing. So I think that there is no definite answer to that question. It's a difficult question to answer, but I hope I can at least give you some of my thoughts.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, would you think, like, normally out of like 100 missing people's cases, like, how many of them would you solve out of 100?
Oh, that's another difficult question. People go missing for many reasons. So people can go missing because there was an earthquake, and in the earthquake, maybe people ran out of their homes, and they were able to find refuge somewhere. Cell phone is not working, and these people are alive. Sometimes when there is a disaster, a natural disaster, sometimes people are not alive. But there is also wars. There is also, I know that you've been talking to some climate change experts. Some people are moving from their places where they live because the climate, they cannot do any more agriculture. They cannot do any more, and they need to migrate. The challenge is that nobody knows where these people end up being. When it's, for example, a war, maybe a lot of these people died, but nobody knows where their final place of rest is. So that's one aspect of this. The second aspect is that for you to be able, so imagine that you find a person that died because of a war or a disaster. When they die, they might have properties like a cell phone, they might have properties like a wallet, an ID. But the problem is that you cannot identify them with their cell phone or with their ID, because you don't know if I was carrying. I don't know if, guys, if you gave me your cell phone for me to carry it in my backpack, or I don't know if I gave it to someone else. So it needs to be a forensic process, much like you see in the crime shows. So what happens is that you need fingerprints, or you need dental records, or you need the DNA. You need to collect that. But you also need something else to match it with. So for example, if I die and they find my body, they can extract my DNA, they can maybe extract my fingerprints, maybe they can get some of my teeth, but they will need someone to match it. And maybe my mom is here. So my mom would say, oh, because you share, for each one of you, you share DNA, both from your mom and your dad. So maybe someone can come and be with my mom and say, hey, give us your DNA so that we can match it together. But the challenge is that sometimes in places of war, maybe my mom also left, and maybe they cannot find my mom or my dad, or the next better thing, my cousins or my brothers, and maybe my family structure is disappeared. So for many people that are in the war, if you think recent conflict, sometimes the whole family travels away and the family splits, the family separates. And sometimes it's very difficult to find who the missing person is and to find who the family is. So it's very challenging because, as I was telling you in the first response, it's sometimes difficult to work with families because you don't always know if you can help them. You don't always know if you can find the DNA from the parent and the DNA from the person that died and match them. And this is a big challenge. In Mexico, sometimes we say that we have 100,000 missing persons and 50,000 of them have been found. But this is not an exact number because it really depends. I know that this is a very difficult topic, but I just want you to keep this in mind if you ever end up working in my line of work. It is always important to help people identify themselves when they are traveling, know where they go, try to keep a record of where these people were traveling. So I think it's very difficult, and I'm sorry if I took a long to answer your question, but it's just a difficult question to answer. But I hope I gave you a little bit of information of what the process is. One thing I wanted to tell you, just sorry. It's very important for the families that you always think that the person is living. This is something that is really, really important and really that needs to be like that. You always need to make sure that you, whenever you are conducting a search, you think and you organize yourself as if the person is living. You never say that the person died. You never know until you know forensically and you can demonstrate it forensically. But until that moment, you always, and countries in Tunisia, in India, you always have to make sure that your countries know or conduct the search under the presumption of this person being living. That is very important.
Okay. So one of my last questions to you is, in your opinion, how can our world become a safer place for everyone?
By what you're doing, I think that what you're doing is great. I honestly think that the fact that you're going there, talking to people, getting exposed to hard problems, it's something that it's needed, because believe it or not, you are the future. It might not seem like it right now, but you are the future. And if you can help us to make sure that whatever we don't see, whatever we don't understand, you put it in your agenda. Because for me, it's very, very important that you, one day, maybe you're going to be the prime minister of your country. And even if you're not the prime minister, maybe you're going to be in a position where you can help others. And I wish that I feel very jealous of you, in the sense that you're having an experience that is absolutely fantastic, and just keep learning from it, keep sharing it with other young people, because I really think that it's with you that lies the key to our future. So in my opinion, I think that the more you do this, the more you transmit it to other people like you, I think the better the world is going to be in the long term.
That is a very nice opinion.
Why do you want to switch from your work on missing persons to migrants?
So missing persons, as I was kind of explaining a little bit, it's a very important work that needs to be done, and people need to be working on identifying these missing persons. However, I identified a gap in my country, and in this gap we have about 100,000 of people coming through the borders. We have people coming from Afghanistan, we have people coming from Ukraine, but we have people also coming from other places like Central America, Venezuela, Colombia, El Salvador, that they either want to go to the United States to get a better life, or they come to Mexico now to try to get a better life. And I realized that Mexico, it's a country where people want to stay. So I really wanted to come and help it make it a little bit better. I wanted to come and help them and welcome them here. I think missing persons is something that I will always work in one way or another. But I felt that within the space of the things that were happening in my country, migrants and refugees and asylum seekers and internally displaced persons, people that had to leave their homes because of an earthquake or because of a conflict that happened within their country, they also need additional protection. So that's why I thought, now, especially now that I finished my degree, I wanted to come here and help in that field, because I know there are other organizations and other people working on the space of missing persons, and I wanted to be part of people working with people in that sense. It's also good to see how people get better. It's really something that I find in the humanitarian work that it's really, really nice, is that if a child arrives with you and it's hungry and unsafe, and you create a safe space for that child to eat and be a child again, you see a very big development, and you see happiness in their eyes, and you can see how families improve or become better after your intervention. So that's why I also decided to, try to do something in my own country. I haven't been living here for 14 years. I missed my mom, also too. So it was I think it was time for me to come back to Mexico and do some work in that space.
Okay, Antonio. So my last question to you is, in investigation, is there any such thing as a psychic?
Yeah. But there might be. The thing is, people use different methods to do some research, and in scientific, maybe in the scientific type of investigation, maybe a psychic would not be considered as something scientific. But people find ways of, or people find hope in many places. So maybe some people would want to use a psychic to try to find other responses or other metaphysical ideas that they have never thought about. In the police practice, it won't exist just because it is not a scientific process, or in other forensic process they won't consider that. But you never know. There might have a there might be a psychic to do certain type of things, but never as a piece of evidence. Always kind of in a different way.
No, because it just this question just popped up in my mind, because I just told you about the mentalist.
Yeah.
So it's about the CBI. They help find cases, and so Patrick Jane is one of the main characters, and everybody thinks his method is super weird. He can do magic tricks, and that's how he helps his crew find the criminal, the one who committed crime. So.
There are not psychics, but they are people that they call behavioral analysts, that they understand the human mind. And I think that for me, that's one of the things that it's very difficult, because there are many things in the world that we don't know. There are many things for which we have no explanation, and some of those things, maybe someone can speak to the spirits. I don't know, but I don't necessarily think that investigation people use it a lot. But there are certain aspects that they look less like science, like, for example, analyzing the minds of someone, or the thoughts, or behavioral analysis, but that they are proven, and that people are learning and trying to study how to make them, how to develop them more.
You have inspired me so much now. After this meeting, I'll probably just think about if I want to go in Interpol when I grow up.
I hope you do. But also, Interpol and the humanitarian world are very, very challenging, but very nice work to do and have.
All right. Thank you, Antonio, for the great advice that you gave us today. Thank you, Arihaan, for asking great questions. And thank you for everything that we learned today. And thank you, Abooters, for listening to this interview. And make sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can hear about upcoming sessions with other changemakers. Please also tell your friends about Oboot and share our social media links with them. And last but not least, go to oboot.co to learn about opportunities to collect digital badges and help us plant trees.